Check that story in the this day newspaper. Despite Nigeria's million states fail to access 68 million. You also see this one, Tinubu to Governor Akwa. The president, new governor visits Akredolu'S family, vows to keep his legacies. Ondo, Oyo declare 3 days of mourning. Jonathan, Atiku, Oshibajo, Abiodun, Oti, others mourn ex-governor Nahara. You check that story also in the this day. The president is also speaking, still speaking in the this day newspaper. Tinubu, democracy must address poverty, create opportunities. Democracy must address poverty, create opportunities. How then do we make democracy work in Nigeria? That's also the question. Really work. Some say it's working, but really make it work to address poverty. Because when you check the you know, the wrong of poverty at this time, you begin to also wonder how do we lift these people out of poverty. Dangote's $20 billion refinery gets third crude shipment production in January. Underline the word May. Fourth shipment on the way. Company gearing up to commence operation at 350,000 barrels per day. You check that story in the This Day newspaper. Before we close shop on the dailies, let's quickly run through some other newspaper out this morning. The Daily Sun, from other headlines we've taken in the papers this morning. Reps move to criminalize 3 to 6 months imprisonment for defaulting employers. That's the story in the lead story in the Daily Sun for today. You also find this quite sad. Girlfriend kills policeman in Imo. PFN reps Northern Caucus condemn Plateau killings, seek end to insecurity. Army decorates 47 new major generals. We've also taken the charge to these new major generals on how well to ensure they contribute their quota to improving the state of security in Nigeria. Let's check the leadership. The leadership newspaper for today. Middlebelt Forum to FG. Security agencies know Plateau killers hideout. Destruction of Mahanga Forest. Ask governors to rise to the occasion. Ohaneze seeks prosecution of killers. Situation again in the front page of the leadership, the Friday edition of the leadership this morning. No hiding place for bandits in Bochi. That's coming from the governor speaking or talking tough at this time. No hiding place for bandits in Bochi. That's Governor Bala Muhammad saying that in the Friday leadership, or the leadership newspaper for today. Kano, police bust child trafficking gang, rescue 9. Away from the leadership, the blueprint newspaper is also leading with the situation in Kano, but of course adding that of Bochi and Anambra. House syndicate steals children. Bochi sells in Anambra, Lagos. Victims go for between 400,000 naira and 500,000 naira. Assimilated into new culture, forget own languages. That's on page 6. That's like stealing the identity of a child. Dewey signs 489.4 billion naira 2024 Bayelsa budget into law. You also find CAF Award, Tinubu First Lady, host Super Falcon star Oshuala. Edo Court War, you find the casualties eaten 16. Edo Court War casualties eat 16. You check that story also in the Blueprint newspaper. The Nation newspaper. In the Nation newspaper, Ondo State is also in the news. Ondo State will immortalize Akredolu'S, says Ayedatiwa. Governor pays condolence visit to widow Betty meets Tinubu. Jostling for deputy governor begins. Commissioner quits. Makinde declares 3-day mourning. You check that story in the Nation newspaper. Oyebanji Oti Diri, 3 orders, sign 2.25 trillion naira budget. LP fixes Senate form at 3.5 million, reps 2 million. You also find a recommendation from Afe Babalola on how to address food security or food insecurity at this time. So let's close shop at this time with the dailies by taking a look at the sporting world. Punch Sports Extra is here this morning. Osime trolled by Juve. Check that story in the Punch Sport Extra. You also find NPFL, Alimi scores 11th goal in Remo loss. Newcastle edge to sign De Gea. Poch wants Chelsea players to emulate Madueke. Madrid to offer Ancelotti new contracts. You also check this one. Football or my football journey from Warri to Europe. That's Ekiho Eyosun. That's an exclusive from the Punch Sport Extra for today. When you grab a copy of the Punch Sport Extra, you find more stories there. Eagles always favorites. That's according to Mikel. That's as the countdown to the Africa Cup of Nations continue. Today, 15 more days to go for the CAF Africa Cup of Nations. Perhaps you want to also get the comments of the former Nigeria international in that regard. But you also find these stories here in Ondo State, particularly at this time. Some of the developments. Governor Akredolu'S, Ondo Assembly extols late Governor Akredolu'S visionary leadership. You also find the chairman, the chief executive of the Osrc Media Group, the Ondo State Radio Division Corporation, Mr. Kunle Adebayo, expressing grief over death of Akredolu'S and eulogizing his service to humanity, Ondo State and Nigeria. Ondo People's Democratic Party has also described late Governor Akredolu'S demise as a national loss. So those are some of the developments here. We'll take a break on the newspaper segment this morning. We'll be back with something also quite important to talk about.
We shall never bow to the machinations of this elites in our resolve to rid our state of.
My small boy, I know so.
You have said in your sermon that àwọn kan kọ̀rọ̀jọ ọmọ ẹni tó máa ná. Èyí bá tí wọ́n bá kú nìkan ní ọmọ ẹni tó máa ná. A lè kọ̀rọ̀jọ gan kí FCC kó lójú wa. Kí la fẹ́ ṣe sí?
Àwa tá jẹ́wọ́ rẹ̀ ní gbangba, tá yìn ọ́ ní gbangba, ọwọ́ agbára rẹ̀ gbangba, ló fi ń gbà wá ní gbangba. Àwa tá jẹ́wọ́ rẹ̀ ní gbangba, tá yìn ọ́ ní gbangba.
Thank you for rejoining us on AM today, this morning. Following the developments in Ondo State, particularly the demise of Akredolu, um, it's also quite necessary to take a look at his life and times. And that's Akredolu'S death, life and times, looking at what many have been saying since his death. The governor himself, Loka Ayedatiwa, said, has left a legacy of time which cannot be washed away. This morning, we take a look at some of the legacies, some of the things he's been able to do in terms of how he's as a person, the impact he's also made on society. This morning, I'm being joined by veteran Mr. Akilumi Abondode. Is a journalist and social commentator.
Zaid, thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for also for coming this morning. From the position you have, it's a vantage fourth estate of the realm and the watchdog of society,
Okay.
who has also made a lot of contribution to the development of Ondo State.
Okay.
You've had
Thank you.
of course, because journalists, by virtue of our work, what we do is also contributing to society development. Akredolu breathed his last December 27th. And this has left so many messages, so many reactions, sober reflections at this time. What has that death left you with?
Let me first of all commiserate, as it is appropriate, with the family of the departed and the government of Ondo State. There is absolutely no doubt about the fact that it is a loss, a great one. And I'll explain very quickly. There are three things. Of course, Akredolu, like every human being, had his faults. I mean, we all do. There's no human being without errors, without faults. But there are three things you could never have taken away from him. One, courage to speak the truth. Few words, I will explain the three. Very many years ago, someone told me a story that when he was Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice under Akredolu'S, that was the military era, there was an issue that was going to affect the people of Ondo State. Akredolu'S was going to take that in his mind, in the interest of the people. But Akredolu'S, being a son of the state, knew that it was going to affect. So while every other member of cabinet was afraid, because it was military era anyway, Akredolu'S stood and told the governor pointedly, I will not support it. That would take a lot of courage. And in recent times, you would remember the Amateku issue. Despite the fact that he was a member, a part of the power equation in this country, he still spoke truth to power. Not many Nigerians can do that, whether in power or in power. Not a fact. I do not know. As a matter of fact, those who could have done that would not be more than 0.01%. Nigerians. Secondly, the passion for development. Look, yes, Ondo State is an oil-producing state. Go to places like Bayelsa. The reality is that the resources that came to this state, in my view, as a journalist, as you said earlier, as a journalist and someone who is deeply interested in societal issues, the reality is that, I don't also forget, Akredolu'S never owed us money. As when I was a civil servant, now I'm retired. Akredolu'S never owe workers their salaries. You would see the volume of work he did. I don't know people like that, whether they are alive.
When you look at his rise, you talk about Lady Evangelist Grace Akredolu'S.
Okay.
You talk about his father, Jacob.
Yes.
You talk about his school days when he was going to Loyola College,
Yes.
Koyera's College, University of Ife.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find instructive in his rise?
Right, okay. From when he was a child, it was obvious that he was going to be an excellent citizen of this country. And I'll tell you a few things. At Loyola, go find out from those who were his classmates. I know a few of his classmates, very, very responsible, very successful citizens. Was exceptional from Loyola. You would see the traits of leadership in him even at that tender age. And of course, you know that when he got to Ife, he became a union leader. And he did well. He rose to become, then he qualified to be a lawyer and rose to become president of the NBA. Until today, he is reputed to be one of the most successful NBA presidents in Nigeria. That's, of course, the reason that his successors then named the NBA house after him. Then he rose to become governor. Look at that fantastic trajectory. Then he rose to become governor. He tried in, I think, 2012. He failed. And we always tell you that I tried. If you tell him that when he was alive, if you told him that, Mr. Governor, you became governor. And wait, I tried in 2012. I failed.
He's always conscious.
He's always conscious of that. I tried in 2012. I failed. At least because I interviewed him a few times.
I was going to come to that.
Yes.
The moment you've had a sit down with.
Yes, it would. At least I interviewed him for. I remember 6 times, one-on-one, and each time he would tell you that in 2012 I failed. But of all the things that he used to say when he was here, there's one that sticks out very clearly. He will tell you at every opportunity that he's planting trees under whose shade he may not rest. I am planting trees under whose shade. So he was conscious of the fact that development was beyond his tenure, which is something you don't find with many Nigerian leaders. Many Nigerian leaders want to do things that they will benefit from. Go check the government house, the new government house that is under construction, almost completed. Fantastic structure. Even if he didn't die, the reality is that he couldn't have lived in that house for more than 1 year.
Even at the time, I remember really at the time that construction was to be started, he did mention that
He mentioned
was
it
not building it for
for himself. And of course, the structure is 90% done now. So the earliest time, let's assume that even if he was healthy, there was no problem and all of that. The earliest time he could have moved into that house was March. His tenure ends in February 2025. So the maximum he could have lived in that house was 1 year. Yet he gave the state that fantastic. You need to see that structure. Government house and governor's office annex. As a matter of fact, the governor's office annex is more beautiful, is 10 times more beautiful than the present governor's office. It should be they call it annex. So he was conscious of development beyond his tenure as governor. So the reality is, if you look at his life, okay, let me take you to something else. Before the 2023 general elections, the real noise in the society was about constitutional reform. Am I correct? He was the one flying that kite. Everybody joined him so that, it became a cliche for people to show that they really loved the people. Since Akredolu fell ill, not one person has mentioned constitutional reforms. Does that not say something to you? Not one person. I'm shocked, honestly. And I still intend to write a piece on it. How will people just forget the most important things before the general elections? Everybody was mouthing constitutional amendment, constitutional reform, constitutional thing. But because the person who was Arrowhead fell ill, everybody kept quiet about it. Does it mean that Nigeria cannot move forward? You see, so if you look at his words, his actions, everything, as I said earlier, he was not without his mistakes. He made a lot of mistakes. But that's just human. The reality is, he came, he saw. For me, he came, he saw, he conquered.
But when you look at his foray into politics, you've mentioned some bits about it, and one would say these are days where you find some persons in position of authorities and you can really hardly trace their links or trace their rise, trace how they've been able to move. Even though some would also say, in an association like the NBA, there are a lot of politicking, also going on within that area. But it's transition from that professional, would I say cadre now?
Yes.
To politics.
To core politics.
That's what you won't find easily around here in Nigeria.
Okay. I wish to liken him to Dr. Olusegun Agagu. Also late now, anyway. Dr. Olusegun Agagu, ordinarily, a lot of people would wonder, before he became governor, how did this man just come into politics? Especially before he became deputy governor under Ambassador Lumilua, now late as well. But if you trace Dr. Olusegun Agagu's life, you would discover that as far back as 79, he was interested and involved in politics, though quietly. What he was, after all, everybody now knows that it was Dr. Olusegun Agagu and Dr. Oluwagunloye who eventually helped Chief Ajashi to get their mandate when the crisis, the MPN crisis happened. And MPN was given the victory in Ondo State in 83. So it would be wrong to say that such a person had not been in politics. Same for Akredolu'S Rotimi Akredolu. Akredolu'S Rotimi Akredolu had been with Asiwaju Bola Tinubu for like forever, handling legal matters for him on political issues. So he knew the political direction of this country. He was conscious of the fact that, okay, there is a leader I am understudying. The most important thing in politics, a lot of people just crash into politics. But for me, what he did was to understudy the real politicians from close quarters. So what happened was that after studying them and understanding the way politics moves, and of course doing serious analysis of what defines political success, he was then able, as a person, to begin to build his own structures.
So it was not a case of what you find around money bags?
No! Which money bag? In 2016, when he contested to be governor, who was the money bag around him? There was no money bag, and nowhere. I remember that even those who could have been supporters in terms of finances, he told them pointedly that he was going to run the election and he was going to win. So that was a way of telling them that it's not about money. I went round in 2012. The people said no because they didn't understand what I was telling them. But now they understand it better. They are going to vote for me. And he won. So he didn't crash into politics. Okay, who was his godfather all through the election? Or all through his tenure? Did you see anybody? We know what is happening in Rivers State now. And predictably, you can say what will happen in Kogi State. But there was no godfather anywhere. You see, anybody who has the capacity and nature of speaking truth to power will not have a godfather.
What does these people also stand to benefit in that?
Okay, so for crying out loud, the reality is that when you see a politician who speaks the truth, there are two things. Number one, he's sincere. And sincerity is what is missing from the Nigerian project. A lot of Nigerian politicians are not sincere. So they make you promises. Zaid, you live at so place. I will tar the road to your bedroom with gold. Once they get there, they abandon it. I gave you a very good example now, constitutional amendment. Has anybody spoken about it?
All right. We'll still dig deep into the life and times of Akredolu'S, particularly his service to Nigeria, his service to Ondo State, two days of the people, and he also came into power with some promises on the cards for the people. We'll take a look at some of those. Oluwarotimi Akredolu'S, SAN, the lifetime of the former governor of Ondo State, one who also had to battle through several death rumors, one who some say perhaps had the premonition of his death in a way. We're still talking about some of the things he's been able to do while he was here with us. And I'm still with a veteran journalist and social commentator, Akemi Abodode. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much.
So, particularly in Ondo State, secured the mandate of twice, promised some things, to do certain things, particularly in his first tenure, a fashion through agriculture, technological growth, provision of accessible and qualitative healthcare and social service delivery, rural development, and community extension services. He says, we are going the redeemed way. He says it's a redeemed agenda for his administration. And you also find some of the things he also hoped to.
Okay, so let's look at each sector, beginning with the GMPPR. There's no doubt about the fact that unemployment is one of the biggest problems in this country. And that's because we are not an industrial country. We are not an industrially inclined country. We pretend to want industrialization, but we do not. Nigerians are too comfortable with imported products. So how are industries in this country supposed to survive? But he identified the fact that if you're going to create employment, you're going to have to do industrial development. All over the state. You know, or industrial hub. There are tons of land given to oil palm farmers. So many things in the Southern Senatorial District. And he was replicating same in the other senatorial districts, the central and the north. Now, why was the one in the Southern Senatorial District obviously faster? That is a strategic corridor in Ondo State. One, the reality is that that's a place where the wealth of the nation, of the state is. The coastal line, arable, so many things. So you would see that he was deliberate. Infrastructural development. There's no person in this state today who would deny the fact that infrastructural development was massive. Not just roads, even other areas of infrastructure. Let's look at structures that would accommodate workers. Go to Ministry of Works. Look at ODIRS. Look at the new Accountant General's office. Look at the new structure for the Contributory Health Commission. Look at the Innovation Hub.
There's also a judiciary.
The judiciary. Thank you. So, across the landscape, look at the massive roads rehabilitation going on in the state. Okay, so let's go to health. Provision of functional health. If you go to the medical, first of all, you would see that before he came on board, there were just two. He expanded them across, and the two are in the Central Senatorial District anyway. He expanded them to other senatorial districts. Look at the 250-bed mega hospital project at Unimed Ondo and Teaching Hospital Akure. He also upgraded the Akure Specialist Hospital to a teaching hospital. So that's for health. You look, Zaid. There is, okay, let's look at rural roads. That's the fourth one. There was an interview I had with him, a conversation. It was an interview structure. And I raised that question with him. You are not making the kind of success, you are not recording the kind of success that you promised the people in the area of opening up rural roads. And he explained that the state does not have control over it. And he said that everything that the state needed to do had been done. But that the World Bank processes are a bit slow because they are very thorough. And that there was no way Ondo State would be able to activate the process without the input or without without the component of the World Bank and the third body. I'm sure that it will be one of his biggest regrets, because don't forget that it was particular about grassroots development, exceptionally particular about grassroots development. So I'm sure that it will be one of his biggest regrets, because I remember that he said to me that by the end of December of last year, the process will be fully operational. But he didn't succeed with it. Then he started falling ill. And honestly, there was nothing they could have done, considering the information we have about what the kind of illness he battled. But please work on your health. Do not joke with it at all. He didn't joke with his health, but there was just nothing. What happened to him was beyond him. But for other people, you have headache, you have body pain, you have this. Try to see a doctor. Be frequent to your doctor so that you know what you're going through.
There's one thing the governor, the late governor, Akredolu'S, did not hold back from, and that's this dream. It pushed a lot